fiber artist, blogger, author of Farm and Folk Quilt Alchemy. Today on the podcast, we'll be talking natural dyeing, natural materials, hand stitching, and the art of making lasting heirloom quilts. Today, I'll have a chat with Sara Buscaglia of Farm and Folk. Hello and welcome to the Quilter on Fire podcast. I'm Brandy Maslowski, a former firefighter turned quilt professional. As a quilt teacher, speaker, and judge, I travel the globe to bring quilters more joy and less overwhelm. Not too long ago, the quilty life I now lead was just a dream. After many lessons and a lot of hard work, I've transitioned from juggling a day job and a quilting business on the side to becoming a full-time quiltpreneur. I started the Quilter on Fire podcast to create a vibrant community of quilters, artists, and makers. Each episode brings you inspiring stories, insights, and the pure joy of guests from all over the world. If their stories uplift you and spark joy, you're in the right place. Let's dive in and ignite that creative fire within you. My guest today was highly recommended by a listener of the podcast, and that means a lot to me. So I had to check out Farm and Folk. I was thrilled to discover this beautiful world of natural handcrafted joy in Sara's Instagram feed. Sara Larson Buscaglia is a self-taught organic farmer, natural dyer, quilt maker, and founder of Farm and Folk. She has amassed 100,000 followers on social media, attracting an audience that is obviously invested in hand-stitched quilting, natural dyed materials, and the art of creating lasting heirlooms. Her first book launched in 2023, and it is called Farm and Folk Quilt Alchemy, a high country guide to natural dyeing and making heirloom quilts from scratch. If a friend asked me where I wanted to go out for dinner to eat any day of the week, I'd say, let's find a farm-to-table restaurant. And this just happens to be Sara's entire lifestyle. So let's explore the story of Sara Buscaglia of Farm and Folk. Sara, welcome to the show.
Brandy, thank you so much for that introduction. Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy to have you here. This is going to be a lot of fun. This is a really fun topic. It's down to earth. I just can't wait to talk about it. So let's start by taking a look back at where you got started. So when do you first remember putting stitch to fabric?
I think it was, I don't know how old I would have been, but my mom got my sisters, I have two sisters, and she got us cross stitch kits at some point. So I think that must have been the first time I ever worked with needle and thread. And I think, there was a long time after that I didn't do any kind of sewing or stitching. But that was probably the first time that I can remember.
So were there certain people in your life that had a creative impact on you in those early years?
Yes, both my grandmothers were into handwork. My dad's mom, my granny, she was a knitter, a really prolific knitter. She knit us all sweaters, and she was always had her hands busy, always working on something. So that was she was a big influence. And she did needlepoint to really intricate, beautiful needlepoints. And then my mom's mom, my grandma, she worked on, her biggest thing was braided rugs. So her and my grandpa wore almost all wool clothes that I can remember. And when they got old, she would tear them apart and braid them into strands of braids and then make the braided rugs. She would sew the braids together and make these huge, beautiful rugs. I have a couple of them actually, but I have memories of her working down in her craft room making those rugs.
Yeah, so you got to see that growing up. So that's had an influence on you for sure. So can you tell us a little bit, so if one of my listeners right now was pouring through your Instagram feed, they would see the beauty there and they'd probably be wondering how did we get here? How did we get to this farm fresh aesthetic? Did you make a transition from a school path or another career before getting there? What's your origin story?
Yeah, I still can't believe it even happened. My husband and I were not raised farming or rurally by any means. We were both from the suburbs, Midwestern suburbs. Um, so yeah, for me, it happened that I made it through my first 2 years of college, and then I got to the point where I had to choose a major, and I just couldn't. I couldn't commit to anything on that list. And so I decided to take a gap year, which just turned into never coming back because I just couldn't commit to spending my life doing any of those things on that list. None of them felt right to me. So shortly after that, really shortly after that, a couple months after that, I met my husband and we started gardening, and I completely fell in love with it. I had never gardened before, and I just fell in love with the whole process, planting seeds and watching them sprout and then turn into this food that we got to eat. So that it started as a garden, and then the next year a bigger garden, and then a bigger one until it was just a farm. And all of a sudden we were farming and going to the farmer's market. So that's kind of happened without any. We read books and taught ourselves how to do it. Um, yeah, it wasn't a plan. It just sort of happened.
Yeah, it was just a natural transition into doing the things you loved the most. And then, so at some point, you started having family, right? And can you tell us where along the lines of the story that your first quilt came in?
Yeah. So, yeah, our first son was born in 1999. And this is kind of where my whole crafting adventure began, because I had been working full time as a farmer and loving it. And he was born, and I thought I'd be able to take him to the farm and keep going with that, but it didn't work out. I just couldn't bring an infant to the farm. The elements were too intense. It just didn't work out. And so I found myself home alone a lot, um, with him, and needed something to do. I needed something to focus on and just keep going. So I like to keep busy. And so I got into knitting, and I was knitting him toys and things like that. And then I started sewing. My friend talked me into buying a sewing machine. She swore that if I could knit, then I could sew too. So I bought a sewing machine, and on my way home from buying the sewing machine, I stopped at the craft store and bought a sewing pattern. And the ladies who worked there helped me figure out how to read the back of the pattern and figure out how much fabric and all the notions and things I needed. So I got home and opened up the pattern and taught myself to sew by just following the instructions in the pattern. And I got really hooked on it and kept going and started making all of my son's clothes. And over the years, as we had more kids, I was making most of their clothes. And eventually, I had this scrap basket full of all the scraps from all the clothes that I made them. And I didn't want to throw it away or give it away. So, because those scraps were also special. Um, and so I was at a craft store one day and saw a book about quilt making, and I bought it and came home and followed the instructions and made a patchwork quilt. It was just like a 4-inch square patchwork quilt. And it was so fun. I fell head over heels in love with quilt making. Quilt making was something that I always thought I would do eventually, like maybe when I was older. But once I made that first quilt, I was completely hooked and just started making one quilt after another.
And how did your aesthetic change from using up those scraps and actually buying materials, doing it by machine, to all hand dyed, hand quilted, hand stitched everything?
I kind of skipped a part. I did have a bias for natural dyes because my son went to a Waldorf preschool, and they had a workshop there one day. It was a needle felting workshop, and the teacher the workshop teacher came with this big bag of naturally dyed wool roving. And when she dumped it onto the floor, I was just like transfixed and mesmerized by this plant dyed fiber. I had never thought about plant dyed anything before. I mean, I was a farmer. I had that connection to food, growing the food that we eat. This whole world of plants as color was so new to me. And yeah, I fell in love with it. And so I left that workshop, went home and bought a book on natural dyeing and began natural dyeing. And that kind of got me into this long rabbit hole of fiber wool, working with wool and naturally dyeing it. We got some sheep and I got into spinning. So I was spinning yarn and naturally dyeing it from our sheep and making sweaters for the kids and all these kind of slow, beautiful processes. And so when I started making quilts, I was working with the fabrics, as I said, from the clothes that I made the kids with. Those fabrics were mostly like tablecloths and vintage fabrics that I just picked up and repurposed because I really like just the vintage look of the clothes and like the whole process of going to the thrift store and finding fun, quirky fabrics to work with. And so, yeah, when I got into quilting, I started off working with that and only repurposed. And then I kind of took this turn and got into designer fabrics for a minute. And I was making all these quilts from designer fabrics. I was just super excited about quilting and the whole process of cutting up the fabrics and putting them back together in these fun designs. It was so fun. But yeah, I kind of had to take a step back because when the quilts were finished, I didn't really love them. I wasn't really in love with the quilts. I realized that it was more the process that I was in love with, but I needed to find a way to be in love with the process and the quilts. And so I realized that I needed to try naturally dyeing cellulose fabric, which is kind of a different process than dyeing wool. But since I had so much experience dyeing the wool, I don't know, I just wanted to give it a try because I knew that I would love the colors that came from the natural dyes. So once I had the idea in my head, I just went for it and went out to the shed and found all my old natural dyes and then got out my books and started learning about the process of naturally dyeing cellulose fabrics. And within a few days, I had all these colors to work with and they were really bright. And I wasn't completely happy with the colors, those first colors that I made, but it gave me the inspiration to practice and figure out how to make the colors that I wanted to make, the colors that inspired me. I had to think a lot about what colors did inspire me and then, learn how to make them. And so, once I started doing that, I made my first naturally dyed quilt and was in love with it, loved the whole process. I loved how that process of naturally dyeing really slowed things down for me. I wasn't just like rushing through the excitement of making a quilt, but really like putting a lot more thought into it. I don't know, once you invest time in the whole natural dye process and everything, it made me kind of slow down and think about what do I really want to do here with this? I didn't want to waste that fabric.
Yeah. Oh, I love this rabbit hole that we're talking about because, I mean, I just look at your shop and I can't even imagine how you have all that knowledge of every single thing that makes every single color. And you've done everything from planting to growing to dry, to like you have done every process to bring it to the customer, right? So can you give us a little bit of a description of what it means to naturally dye something? So is cellulose just cotton?
Yeah. So fabric or fibers are kind of divided into two categories. There's protein and then cellulose. So protein are they come from animals or insects. So wool, silk, those are protein fibers. And then cellulose would be cotton, hemp, linen, plant fabrics. Yeah.
Okay. And so when we're talking about dyeing with natural fibers, you're using the plants you've grown from the earth. Do you have to, use all kinds of mordants and cook it and do all kinds of things to it to create that dyed finished piece of fabric?
Yeah, there's a lot of steps that go into the process, a lot of processes before the actual process of dyeing, putting the dye on the fiber. So you have to prepare the fiber. You start by scouring it always, which is just kind of using hot soapy water and kind of cooking the fabric for a while to get anything out of the fabric that might, like starches or oils, that might not give a good bond between the mordant and the fiber. So it's kind of boring. You have to do a bunch of boring steps before you get to the fun part of actually applying the color. But yeah, scouring. And then with cellulose, you have to do an extra step, which is giving the fabric a bath in a tannin-rich plant. So you kind of make like a tea from it. And that alters it works its alchemy and makes the fabric be able to accept a mordant. And then you do the mordant. I work with alum mostly. That's pretty much all I work with, alum. It's non-toxic, and yeah, so that's the mordant, alum. And then once all those steps are done, then you finally get to apply the dye. But without the mordant process, the dyes won't bond to the fabric, and so when you wash it, the color would wash away, or it would fade with light. But the mordants make it permanent.
Yeah, so there's a lot of labor involved, but that's why you wrote this glorious book, right? So you brought this to the world. It's achievable for people now. And we're going to talk all about the book after the break. So you grow, you harvest, you dry, you package these plants, dried plants, so that people can actually purchase them from your shop. And I'm excited about talking about that too. But let's take a moment out of the story for a second and find out, where are you living now and who are your loved ones that you share your world with every day?
Oh, yeah. I live in Durango, Colorado, which is the very southwest corner of Colorado. So for us, our nearest city is Albuquerque, New Mexico. We're far from Denver in the Front Range. And I live with my family. I have 4 kids and a husband. Our kids are mostly grown. Our oldest is 26 and our youngest is now 17. But yeah, they all still live here with us. And yeah, those are my people.
I wonder what they would say about such a glorious childhood on the farm. They would probably have wonderful things to say, right?
Yeah, it was pretty good, I have to say.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to get into a conversation about design. And usually when I ask this question, I'm talking to maybe a quilt pattern designer, surface designer, or a quilt pattern designer. But I want to talk to you about the design of your dyes, because you mentioned earlier a little bit of a rabbit hole, but you actually grow everything. So how did you self-educate or get the knowledge to know what would actually make which color and what you had to grow in what season and dry in which, was it just all trial and error?
Yeah, everything is trial and error. I'm still trial and erroring. Um, and I hope that never stops, because to me, that's the fun part. And yeah, it's just trying things. I'm really curious. I'm always wanting to try something new. So I've only been farming natural dyes. This was my 4th season this year. I was doing all food before that. And so the whole natural dye thing was, sorry, my dog is getting excited over there. The natural dye thing was just an idea that came to me out in the field when I was working out there one day. I had just finished writing my book, and I was trying to figure out a way to bridge farming and my work as a textile artist. And I was like, I think I need to just grow natural dyes, because I was farming at this time and running our farm stand, but not doing great, not making enough money doing the farm stand to really make it worth it. So, and I just had this idea, I'll just try growing natural dyes. So the next summer, I planted 4 different kinds of natural dyes, 4 or 5, and loved it. And then the next year it got a little bigger. And then, yeah, I'm 4 years in now. I started with 4 varieties. And this year I think I had something like 35. So
Wow.
I just keep making it bigger. And now next year, I think I'll focus on scaling back a little bit because it was a lot.
Yeah. And do they have, like, once they're in the package, they're dried product, right? So they have a nice long shelf life?
Yeah, that's what's so amazing, to farm something that is not perishable. So
Yeah.
once I harvest it, I bring it into my drying room. I have a little drying shed here where I dry everything. And our climate here in the Southwest is just the most perfect for drying things. It's very arid here. And yeah, so it just works out perfectly. And once the flowers are dry, I can put them away, store them away until it's time to get into packaging. And yeah, and now they're sitting in, their packages out there in my studio on the shelf, and they'll last for years like that.
Yeah. So when you're in the process, you see something in the world, you're on your farm somewhere, and it sparks an idea for a new color. Like, how do you sort of keep track of everything? Do you have these massive sketchbooks with this color is this plant? And, like, how do you keep it all together? And I guess you also have to figure out what sells well or doesn't, right?
For sure. Yeah, I do keep a dye journal. So it's like notes and then color swatches for each one. And I try to write blog posts about those things to share with other people, to show other people what colors these different plants yield. But yeah, it's just a lot of experimenting. I've spent so much time experimenting with natural dyes. In writing my book, I had to invest a lot of time in that. And just, yeah, learning which colors I like and then how to make them. It can be really, really fun to figure that out, because working with dyes is not exactly the same as working with paint, where you just mix paint colors to make different colors. There's just a lot more variables, a lot more factors that you have to consider when working with natural dyes.
Yeah, I bet. Well, it sounds like so much fun. I really would love to try it one day. So let's get into a little bit about the business while we're here. So you named the business Farm and Folk. How did that come about?
Again, it was just, I was sitting at my spinning wheel one day and it just popped in my head, and I was like, that's it. Um, yeah, so farm grown, folk sown is kind of what my tagline became yeah.
I love that tagline. It's on all of your products, farm grown, folk sown. So what is kind of your personal why statement? Like, why are you doing all this?
I do it really because it's my passion and I'm in love with it. And I feel so lucky that I get to make my passions my life. Um, yeah, I, I'm this kind of person. I've always been this way since I was a kid, that if I don't want to do something, I just can't do it. So I guess I just channeled that and turned it into this whole thing.
Yeah, it's so great that you're doing what you love. So let's talk about the website, farmandfolk.com. So what kind of things can we find there? What do you bring to the world with your business?
Yeah, so on the website, there's quilts. Not, I don't have any on there right now for sale, but I wish I had more quilts. I wish I had more time to make quilts. I'm constantly trying to balance the farming and making lifestyles. And farming always wins because they're living plants that need my attention and I can't set aside. Yeah, but on the website, you'll find all my dyes that I have available, all the homegrown natural dyes from here that I planted. I started them all by seed, and yeah, sometimes quilts. You'll find quilts there, and then I have a blog over there where I share all the different processes, natural dye tutorials, and some gardening tutorials, and quilt making tutorials can be found over there.
Okay, great. So sometimes as you make them, you'll have some small works or some quilts up there. Of course, all your natural dyes are available. And sometimes you'll have kits and patterns up there as well. And the book, of course. We're going to talk about the book after the break. So you actually strive to do less on Instagram and more on the blog. So I want to dive a bit deeper into this blog because this is where you bring real value to your community. So you mentioned tutorials, but I just want to augment that a little bit because you're being a bit humble. This blog is like a treasure trove it's like an archive of natural dyeing. You show the plant, you show the whole little process. You do seasonal updates as well, which is really fun. The summer in the farm, fall in the farm. I love that. And you also do handmade quilt block tutorials, right? So the blog is a really great place to go. You just go to the website and click right on the blog, and then you can see the whole history there. You also do a newsletter. So tell us what, once in a while, every month or so?
Yeah, I try to put it out once a month around the first of the month. And yeah, it's just another one of those things that I had high hopes of, like, I'll make it really amazing and put a lot into it. And then I just get super busy, and I do everything from planting and transplanting and all the farm work, and then the photography and the packaging and the website. Like everything. I don't have any help. So, yeah, I wish I could put more into everything.
Yeah.
But
well, you're doing it all yourself, and it's wonderful. I have to say the packaging is gorgeous. We're going to talk about the photography in a little bit more detail later because it just blew me away. But so get on board. If you're listening right now, sign up for that newsletter because that's where you will see, it's only once a month or so. And that's where you will see what's new, or if there's a new sale, or if she's got new quilts in anything, that'll be where she makes those announcements, right? Okay, so let's do something fun here. Let's talk about the day in the life of a farmer during farm season and then during quilt season. So what's the difference?
Yeah. So during farm season, I get up, I get going. It starts with chores. We have chickens. So that's always the first thing on my mind when I wake up is taking care of them and getting them situated. And yeah, it just really depends. In the spring, I'm planting everything, and that moves into transplanting, and then as the summer goes on, I mostly spend my mornings weeding in the garden. I keep myself on a really strict kind of weeding in the morning schedule, and then just doing whatever needs to be done. I've tried to make a spreadsheet and a schedule and stick to things, but it never works out because there's always something else that has to happen. And I don't know, I'm good at just, going with it and doing what needs to be done. And it always gets done. I'm good at keeping up with the garden and keeping it looking nice and tidy. And yeah. Yeah. And then during harvest season, I do a lot less weeding and spend most of my days just harvesting. All throughout the day and bringing stuff into the dry racks and moving stuff off the dry racks and into storage bins. Yeah, so that's kind of my farm life in a nutshell. And then in the winter, right now, I'm just kind of at the very beginning of this textile season. So this time of year, I have two studios. One is more for natural dyeing and all my farm kind of stuff, and for packing orders. And my other studio is for quilt making. So no matter which one I'm going to be working in the winter, the day starts off by making a fire in the wood stove to warm things up. So after I do my morning with animal chores, I'll go make a fire and then come back to the house and get something to eat. And so by the time I go out to the studio, it's nice and warm in there. Yeah, and then I just get into whatever I'm going to get into for the day, making textiles.
It kind of sounds dreamy. And I have to say, like, wouldn't say I'm a city slicker. I live in a small town of about 11,000 people, but we go to Escape and we'll rent a B&B that's a cabin with a wood stove. That's where we go to Escape for our holidays. So it's kind of cool that you get to live that on the day to day. Okay, so we're going to get into your book, like I said, after the break, but you have all kinds of other publications and features, but there's one thing that was very special that I really want to talk about, and it's called American Seams. This is a documentary that was Emmy nominated. So tell me how that came about and what did you do in that little movie?
Oh, that was so fun. So that was an email I got one day. It was right after I had finished writing my book. I turned in the manuscript and I was just feeling like I was in this just say yes time in my life. So these filmmakers reached out to me. Carly and Jared Jenkins reached out to me and asked if I would like to if I had any interest in being in this film that they were making about women quilt makers in the West. And I said yes. And even though that was something completely out of my comfort zone. And so, yeah, they interviewed me on Zoom and we really connected and we went for it. And then that film crew came out in the spring and we spent a couple days here on the farm filming. And it was such a good, fun experience. Connecting with them and making that film and being featured alongside the other two.
So what was the film about and who was kind of featured in the film?
The film was about women quilt makers in the West. And it was a real honor to be featured alongside Susan Hudson and Brenda Bailey, the other two women who were featured. And yeah, it was just such a fun experience. And yeah, I made friends with the filmmakers and the whole crew. And I'm so glad I said yes at that time when I was coming off a long stretch of saying no to everything.
Yeah, well, it seems so cool. It's a sort of like an intimate portrait of American women in the West, rural kind of a rural perspective, right? And you can go to YouTube right now and just search American Seams and you'll find it. It looks like it's about 15 minutes or so, a little short film. But yeah, it's kind of cool because it was Emmy nominated, and that means that they did a great job. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing that. I haven't seen it yet. I've kind of been saving it. When we're recording this episode, it's leading right into the holidays. I know this will come out in the new year, but I'm looking forward to taking some time to watch that over the holidays. Okay, so you have had some travel as well. So you wrote the book and then you had a bit of quilt travel highlights as a teacher and speaker. So tell us about your experience at the Modern Quilt Guild in Portland. What did you teach there?
Oh, that was really fun. That was the first class that I ever taught. So I was really nervous to do it. It was a whole new world, a whole new experience for me. But I'm so glad again that I said yes to that. I think writing the book gave me the confidence. I was able to kind of put all my experiences into words and form words around them that I was able to share with other people with confidence. So yeah, that class was just natural dyes. So it was a weekend, like a 2-day class. And we did we did so much in that little weekend. We dyed tons of colors and it was like a really fast moving workshop where everybody went home with maybe like 20 different color samples that we dyed. It was really fun.
Yeah, and we have to be careful because you're not planning to travel every week of the year next year for 52 weeks. You're kind of looking forward to taking, you mentioned earlier in the podcast that you have over 30 varieties. You might be taking a little step back. So you're kind of doing a review this year and you're taking it easy, right?
Right. Yeah. The travel teaching and, well, yeah, like I said, doing the book and then saying yes, yes, yes to everything and all the opportunities that arose after that. I'm really grateful for all of it. And I'm really happy that I did say yes. And I really enjoy travel teaching and connecting with all the students and the people that happens when I do that. But yeah, now I'm entering this time of, okay, I just need to slow down now. And um, my farming has become bigger, like I said, and it's creeping into my textile season more and more. And so I need to reestablish a balance between those two worlds. And yeah, I just realized that I need to put teaching and other things on hold and say, just stay rooted here and really get some quality time in the studio because it's important to have the time to make new work and be able to have breakthroughs and all the creative explorations that they have to happen, or else I won't have anything to share and go teach anyone anymore. I have to keep learning.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great lesson for us all. It's good boundaries, right? It's sort of self-exploration and understanding what you need. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so is there a quilt or quilt project that's been most memorable for you?
I always say that my favorite quilt is the one that I'm making in that moment. And so, yeah, I just finished a quilt. It doesn't have a name yet. It's a big queen size quilt. I started it probably almost 2 years ago. And that's how busy I've been. And that's where, I'm coming to this point where I'm like, I need to slow down and have time to focus on textiles. Yeah, so hopefully I'll get to photograph that one really soon and get it listed up on the website. But I feel like I'm finally reaching this time, like I'm finally hitting on a palette that really speaks to me and really feels authentic to me, and which I really, really love. It's pastels. I never thought that I liked pastels. I always thought that I didn't like pastels. And yeah, I've kind of narrowed it down to a pastel palette and then putting these bright, fun colors with it. So yeah, I'm really excited to dive more into that this winter, working on creating some palettes that I really, really love and feel inspired by, experimenting with creating a couple different new palettes to me and making quilts from them.
I love that your latest quilt is always your favorite quilt. That just means you're living in the moment and you're getting that joy as you grow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So in your creative practice, I'm going to split this question in two, actually. So in your creative practice, what brings you joy? But let's talk about your joy in the farm season and your joy in the textile season.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of all one and the same too. That what brings me joy is the process. And that's yeah, for me it's not like the finished quilt or any, it's not that is joyful and it is exciting. But what I love the most is all the processes that lead up to it. And I love each of them the same, from planting the seeds to tending to the plants to harvesting and then getting to set up dye baths with those plants, and then finally getting to cut into the fabric and come up with a design and then make the quilt, and then that final stitch that holds it all together. It's all so exciting to me and joyful. And yeah, I couldn't possibly pick one process that I love more than the other.
Yeah, I love it. I love every minute of this conversation. Okay, so right now we're going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk all about Sarah's 2 studio spaces where she does all of her work, more quilts, and the book, of course, and what's coming soon. We'll be right back. Looking for your next quilting obsession? Introducing Cotton Cuts, your online fabric shop and home of the puzzle mystery quilt. Each month, you'll unwrap a new clue featuring beautifully curated pre-cut pieces and easy-to-follow instructions so you can skip the cutting and dive straight into stitching. No spoilers here. The final design stays under wraps until the big reveal. With a gorgeous range of fabrics, clever pre-cut kits, and a community of passionate quilters cheering you on, Cotton Cuts makes every stitch an adventure. Join the thousands of quilters who've discovered quilting made simple. Visit cottoncuts.com and get started today. And we are back. Sara, can you tell us about your studio space? You mentioned that you have 2. So what are the different areas of your farm and home where you do your work?
Yeah, I feel so lucky to have not just one studio, but I have 2 now. And yeah, this is kind of a new thing. I always just made my studio a random place in the house. Like I always had no shame in taking over the living room or the sunroom or any room in the house, making it a workspace. But yeah, a few years ago, we converted our barn that used to be for our sheep and goats. We don't have sheep and goats anymore, but we converted the barn to a studio space. So that's my big studio. And that's where I have a natural dye studio set up in there. And then I have, it's where I do all my packaging for sending out orders. And it's where I keep all my inventory. So it's kind of a place to make big messes. Like I don't have to worry about being messy in there. And that's why I have a separate studio for my textiles. And it's much smaller. It's tucked away in the back. It used to be our chicken coop, and we converted it into my little small studio. It has a little wood stove and south-facing window, so it's really nice and sunny and warm and cozy in there. It's an inspiring place to make textiles and to write blog posts and things like that. So like I said, I can't believe I have 2 studios. It really is such a dream.
And where did the chickens go?
So we built the chickens a new little
chicken studio.
It's in the front of the farm. They have a really nice little chicken coop that's warm and safe from predators.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you wake up early to do chores and things like that. So do you have roosters actually waking you up, or is it just, no, you wake up and you go feed the chickens?
Yeah, I'm not like the earliest bird either. I just kind of get up when I get up. But yeah, we do have a rooster. We have 1 rooster, but he doesn't wake me up. He just kind of crows all day long.
Well, that kind of leads me to the question, what's your favorite time of day?
I'm not like, I don't know. I just like the whole day. I don't think I have a favorite.
That's a really good answer.
I used to be a night person when my kids were really little because I homeschooled them. And so nighttime was like my time, and I would stay up really late. And so back then I would have said that was my favorite time of the day because it was my time to be doing my own thing by myself. But yeah, now I just I like it all. I'm lucky. I wake up and I'm excited to do, well, that's my dog making it. I'm excited to just do whatever it is that I get to do for that day. I'm always excited to wake up and get started.
So what's the best thing you do for your own self-care?
All of it. I feel like I love what I do so much that it's just all feels like self-care, even though like the farming is really, really hard work. I don't know. I just really like it. I find it to be so fulfilling, and it just checks all the boxes for me.
Yeah, so great. So let's get into some of the projects that you've done. So we've already touched on the most meaningful quilt, which is always the latest one you're working on. But let's share a few more of your quilts. So I want to talk about the Jackrabbit quilt. Did you say that this is one of the favorite ones that you have in the book?
Yeah, that's probably my favorite one in the book. Um, yeah, that one, there's a story behind that one. My daughter and I were driving home from town one night, and there were this pair of jackrabbits hopping in front of our car, and they were like zigzagging. They were hopping and like zigzagging, doing this what looked like a choreographed dance in front of our car for like a mile, and then they were in the headlights. And yeah, so when I made that quilt, the black background was like the night. It was a really starry, clear Colorado night. And when I went to stitch that one, if you look at it on the website or you look at it kind of up close, you can see the hand stitching on it. And it's like this really trippy, like kind of psychedelic stitching pattern that just came about. I didn't plan it or anything. I actually did it freehand kind of. I used a serving bowl as my guide and a ruler, and I had no idea where I was going with it. But after I started working at it for a while, that it started emerging, and I was like, "Wow, that's so cool!" So yeah, it was another one of those totally unplanned kind of magical things that happened. So that quilt is probably, yeah, one of my top favorites.
And has that one like gone off to someone who bought it, like a collector, or do you still have it at home?
No, I did sell that one. That one sold. It went to QuiltCon the year that I made it. It didn't win anything, but it got to go there.
Yeah, I got to get in. That's a big deal. Okay, and you also did a series of quilts on children's literature. So tell me about that.
That was really fun, and that's a project that I hope to return to. Maybe I'll get back to that this winter. But yeah, I had this idea to turn some of my, it was when my kids were growing up. This was maybe 5 years ago, and I was realizing my kids were growing up, and I don't know, I just kind of wanted, maybe what I wanted to do was preserve some of those memories of reading to them thousands of times, some of our favorite books, and turn them into quilts. So Miss Rumphius, I did a quilt on her based on her story, and Oxcart Man was another one of our favorites. So yeah, I hope to return to that series, and I'm not sure which stories I'll add to it. I have to think about it, but that it was really fun to make these quilts that felt like those stories to me.
Yeah. Okay, and there's one more quilt I want to talk about, and it's called Of Place. So tell us the story behind that one.
That was my most recent finish. Well, I just finished one, but it just began with this idea of making sawtooth stars. So that was kind of the starting point, and working with the colors that were really speaking to me at that moment. And that was kind of when I was figuring out that I really love pastels, but putting them with kind of I don't have the right color theory words to put with them, but if I was talking about music, I would say minor keys, like moody minor keys. So in colors, I guess that would be like minerally colors. That's how I make them with natural dye. So getting a kind of like a bright clear color and then shifting it with like iron to tone it down and make it feel like a minor key. Yeah, so I was having this breakthrough of putting pastels with those moody, minerally colors. And that one was really, really fun to play around with that whole concept. And then I actually kind of designed that one in EQ8, which I had never used a quilting software. I never even draw out quilts. I just make them. But I had this idea to try EQ8, and that was really, really fun. I don't use it a lot, but the border on that quilt is really unusual, and it was actually because I don't know how to use EQ8. And so I was just like playing around with it, and it with different like tiled borders. I don't remember the right terms even. But it like squeezed something that didn't fit into the border, and it looked like so cool. And so I just went with it, and that was like a total mistake, but a good one. And yeah, that's probably my favorite part about that quilt. That border just really brought it together.
Yeah, well, the border looks so good around it because it's kind of like these squished triangles that are kind of floating, right? And the thing
Yeah.
I love is that the deep, rich color of those little features in the border really draw the colors out that are throughout the quilt, the dark colors. So they kind of really pop. So it's really effective. You think it might be a mistake, but it looks great.
Well, yeah, because it does look squeezed because it is. It was
Yeah.
like EQ8 trying to squeeze these shapes into these. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I like
Yeah, it's really
it.
cool. I remember making a quilt one time. It was just a very simple hexagon quilt because I had gotten this steal of a deal on these little 5-inch squares. It was Amy Butler fabric on Facebook Marketplace, and I was like, get the car. So I had these 5-inch squares, and I wanted to use almost every square inch of them, but I wanted to do hexagons. So I just trimmed the edges. But when I printed just a random hexagon pattern off the internet, I accidentally printed them squished. So I didn't realize it. I cut out all my hexagons and everything, laid it all together, and I'm like, this is a really weird shape. And I realized they're squished, but they still all fit together and it worked out fine. So sometimes, something that seems weird or not working out turns out to be pretty delightful in the end.
Yeah.
So I love that quilt. And of course, you can find that at farmandfolk.com. And if you just click on Quilt Archive, you can see all of the latest quilts. And there's another beautiful pastel one in there called Starflower. That's gorgeous too. I just love them. I really encourage you, if you're listening right now, to scroll through. There's so many wonderful quilts in here unfurled. There's lots of rabbits. And yeah, it's really some beautiful natural dyed fabrics, and you're really going to love it if you go take a look. It's nice also that all of your quilts are your favorites, and they kind of mark a moment in time for you, right?
We do. Yeah. Each quilt, when I look back at it, I can remember what I was doing at that time or like what my inspiration was. And yeah, just the way that my palette it has evolved. Like, because when I first began, I would just dye all kinds of fabrics, and then at the end of the season, I would just work with whatever I had, and that's how I would make my quilts. But now that I've gotten better at choosing what colors I like and being able to make them, I kind of design the quilt first and then do the dye work.
Yeah. Well, and I love that so many of these quilts are kind of like a color study. You actually have one called Patchwork Squares Color Study, Buffalo Check. And so it's really cool that you're learning as you go, creating these new things, and you're just naturally doing what comes next. I love that. So I want to talk a little bit about the supplies you use because you don't have a typical stash of commercial fabrics, right? So what do you use for fabric, batting, backing, thread? What kind of supplies do you use?
Yeah, the one thing that I really love about doing the dye work is that I get to choose what fabric I get to work with. Because in the commercial world of dyes and cotton, it's all like, well, it's commercially produced. So there's a lot of chemicals and a lot of, just from a farming standpoint, I know what goes into commercial farming. And so for me, it's kind of like I don't want to be a part of that. As an organic farmer, I want to stay true to not just eating and growing organic food, but also to incorporate that to all parts of my life if I can. So yeah, just once I figured out that I could naturally dye the quilts and use organic cotton and organic fibers as my base, it kind of helped me stay on track with my values and apply them to my textile work as well. So
Yeah, so great. It's nice to use natural things and get them, locally if you can. I love that. Okay, so I'm really excited to talk about the book. It's a beautiful book. The photography is amazing. So let me just say the title because it's a long one. Farm and Folk Quilt Alchemy, a high country guide to natural dyeing and making heirloom quilts from scratch. So how did this come about?
Well, most of my kids had graduated from homeschooling or gone off to high school. I just had one more kid that was homeschooling, um, and a publisher reached out to me and asked if I would be interested. Abrams reached out to me and asked if I'd be interested. And I said yes. I was just at this time in my life where I could say yes, and I was ready to say yes. And yeah, I mean, writing a book, it just doesn't pay very much, but it was just the right timing for me because I was kind of transitioning between living that life as like a homeschooling mom and farming. And it was just the right time. So I said yes. And yeah, we went back and forth about what the book would be about. And, it's publishers, they expect certain things from you. So there's some negotiating that had to happen. And yeah, I mean, ideally, I wish I could have written it as two books. Like I could have spent a whole year writing just the natural dye part of that book and then made like a next book about the next process of quilt making. So yeah, I did feel it took me 13 months to write it, and it was full time. Just, coming up with all the recipes and writing them down and all the processes and putting words around them. And then they wanted 10 projects. And when you're making quilts from scratch and natural dyes and things and then hand stitching them, that's a lot to get done
Wow.
in in that time. So it was it was big, and it was a big commitment. It was a lot of work. Like I didn't really see many friends during that 13 months. It was like full on. I'm glad I did it. But I'll probably never do it again.
So tell us a little bit about what we'll find within the pages.
Yeah, so it's a 4-part book. The first part is about the pre-dyeing, like all the steps, because there's so many things that have to happen before you can actually apply the natural dye to the fiber. So it's like how to prepare the fiber for natural dyes. And then the second part is all the color formulas and some of my favorite recipes. They're all traditional kind of dye stuffs. So they're color fast, they're suitable for making quilts. So that's the second half. And then the second section, and the third section goes into the patterns. So there's like 10 or 7 full-size quilt patterns. I think there's 10 projects altogether. Yeah, and they're kind of in order, starting from easiest to hardest. Because one of the reasons why I wrote the book was because so many people were reaching out to me with questions about natural dye questions and quilt making questions. So I kind of had a good idea of what people wanted, like what people wanted to learn. And then as a natural dyer, when I started dyeing cellulose fabrics, I realized that there wasn't much information out there that was specific to cellulose fabrics. So I kind of wanted to write the book that I was looking for when I first set out. So yeah, it's really making a quilt from scratch, from beginning to end. So the fourth section of the book is all the quilt making tutorials. And yeah, it's when I make a quilt, I never use a pattern. Most of my quilts are based on traditional quilt blocks. So people are always asking me, do you have a pattern for that quilt? And I'm like, no, you don't need a pattern. So really what I wanted to convey through this book is how to make a quilt from scratch without a pattern. It's really easy. I just introduced the basic shapes of like half square triangles, flying geese, quarter square triangles, just the basic ones that you can put together and make any quilt block in any size. Um, so it's really written for people who don't have all the quilt books in the world.
Yeah.
It's pretty basic.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it's pretty basic. I would say it's pretty fundamental and it's the real deal. But also, you kind of blew my mind for a second there when you said 20 color formulas, because I've never actually natural dyed fabric myself yet. And so what I was thinking was plant equals color, but you said color formulas. So are you mixing different plants together to make different colors?
Yeah, so some colors you have to mix them kind of like you would mix paint to get a certain color that you're after. So yeah, it kind of starts off as like this plant gives this color and this plant gives this color, and then in the maybe the last five recipes are like, and then you can take this one and mix them together to get this color.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it takes a lot of trial and error, and wow, you got a lot
Yeah.
of history there. That's great. Okay, so as a little bit of a recap, so there's fundamentals in there in the book. There's 20 color formulas for natural dyeing. There's 10 projects, including 7 full-size quilts. I like how you started off as, a natural dye book with the process from, grow to how to care for the fabric and grow to dry to mordant and everything included in the dyeing of the fabric. And then you also have the making of the blocks and the quilts. It could possibly be 2 different books, like you said, but it's kind of delightful for the quilter to have it all in one, so they can really do the start to finish thing. And for the quilt patterns, I mean, you have it all laid out really nicely, step by step, easy to follow, and you can use any of those blocks to make any kind of quilt you want. So that's really great as well. Anyone actually can piece and quilt by hand. That's the whole point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my question for you now is, what does the handmade slow stitch process do for you personally?
It's just I find it fulfilling. And farming, it's such a slow process. It's slow, but it also feels fast. And so yeah, and like I said, I went from farming to fiber farming and working with the sheep and spinning the wool and then making the sweater and just loving that whole process. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's just the slow hand stitches are just fitting for my agrarian lifestyle, and for me it feels right. I
Yeah.
used to think that I would never have time um, to hand quilt anything, but once I made that first plant dyed quilt and everything that went into it leading up to the time where it was time to quilt it, I could only hand quilt it. I was like, I can't put machine stitches on this. It wasn't the right
Yeah.
fit. And then once I did it, it was slow, but it was also like, that wasn't that slow. And it was really enjoyable too. So,
Yeah, I totally get it. I'm so curious about the photography as well, because in the book, the photographs are gorgeous. So did people come in and do a photo shoot for you, or did you provide the photos for the book?
both. I did most of the photography myself. I would have really loved, I did hire my friend Chandler Strange. She helped me do some of the photographs, a lot of the ones of me working that I couldn't do. Um, and I really wish I could have hired a photographer to do more of it. I did a lot of self timer photography. But yeah, that's one of the things when I agreed to write the book with them, that I would do all the photography. I was responsible for it. So if I needed to hire anyone or have any help, it would be on my dime. So, and you don't get paid like a tremendous amount to write a book in the first place.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of had to do it myself, and that's fine. I'm pretty good at the self timer, and I'm comfortable with doing it that way too. I like being in behind the camera more than I like being in front of it.
Yeah.
But
Well, the photos are incredible, especially the cover. I mean, it's just beautiful. And I want to mention a photo that's on your website, actually. I think it's on the top of your blog. I'm just going there right now as we speak. That is my favorite photo of your entire website. So if you're listening right now, I want to describe this photo to you because it is a gorgeous shot of Sara in the middle of this field holding the grains in her hand with a beautiful quilted bag and a straw hat. And it's just like the epitome of everything that she is about. I just think it is. There's even this beautiful sunflower in the corner. I
Thank
can't
you.
commend you any more for the photography. I think this is why your Instagram has just had such success, right? So it's just
Oh,
such
thank
beautiful
you.
visuals. So you didn't need to hire anyone because you did such a brilliant job.
Well, I should say my daughter took that picture.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It is so beautiful. I
And
love it.
that one is in the book. And that one, the book is in, there's a Japanese translation, and that one is the cover shot.
Oh, it's so gorgeous. Okay, so I have to stop oogling over everything because I just love every minute of it. So let's go into, okay, first of all, let's just tell people where they can get the book. So we're talking about a book that's published by a publisher, and the creator, the writer, the artist of the book doesn't always get paid a ton for these type of books. So I would say the best place to go get this book would be on Sarah's website. Am I right, Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, if you want a signed copy, that's great. And then, yeah, it is published through Abrams. So anywhere where books are sold is helpful for me. I'm kind of like against Amazon. And right from the beginning, I told people, don't get it there, get it from thrift books or anywhere else. But those sales, turns out, are the ones that help authors the most. And they kind of are the ones that determine whether the book's a good seller or not. So despite
Yeah.
me not liking Amazon, and no matter where you buy it from, it is helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just go and support a creator that you love, right? Okay. That's
Yeah, or
great.
your local bookshop.
Yeah.
Our local bookshop has it. Anybody who sells any bookshop, bookseller, they should be able to order it for you.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. So what is on your design wall right now?
Right now, I have this. So over the summer, I did a sew along, a quilt sampler sew along, where we made a block a week all through the summer. It was just a free project that I hosted on. It was all through the blog. But I have those blocks languishing on my design wall. They've been there since it started in May. So I really need to return to that. And then I've also got these little schoolhouse blocks that I've been slowly working on. I'm excited about those. And I signed up for Tara Fawnen's block studies course, which has been really fun. It's been a great way to get back into studio work because it's really hard for me to kind of like take my farming hat off and put my textile hat back on. But that's been such a fun way to transition back into it.
Yeah. And if you're interested in getting involved in that Tara Fawn color study, go listen to the podcast episode I did with her a year ago, just before QuiltCon, because she was the featured speaker at QuiltCon. And that episode was wonderful. And we talk all about that color study. I think you're going to have so much fun taking that. She is just sort of, I would call her kind of a master of color. She's really, some people don't like being called a master of something, but she's really mastered it. She takes color to the next level for sure.
Yeah, she's a color genius for sure.
Okay, so what's something you're dreaming of doing in the future? You mentioned earlier that this is going to be a year to come back to self, but what are your dreams going forward?
Ooh, just maintaining that farm art balance and getting better at that, because they're both so important to me and so crucial for each other. But yeah, I just getting into a better rhythm with maintaining that so I can have the best of both worlds. And yeah, and being able to still teach here and there. And I need to find a better balance. That's kind of that's my focus right now. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Sounds like a good focus to have. Okay, so now it's time for the lightning round robin. It's a series of rapid fire questions and it's super fun. So are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. What's your favorite tool or notion?
I don't really have any fancy tools or anything. I really like my quarter seam ruler. That's probably the fanciest tool I have. Yeah, my rotary cutter.
Okay. And how many UFOs do you have going on at once in your studios?
Gosh, I used to be the kind of person that could only work on one thing at a time or only read one book at a time. But now I like to have actually a few different things. So work on. I think I have like 3 or 4 right now, that I kind of like go between. And I like that. Yeah.
Now, I'm about to ask this question and I'm thinking you probably don't need this, but do you have any kind of annual creative escape?
I would like to. That would be kind of a dream, would be to take a class. I'm taking Tara's class, as I mentioned, and yeah, and maybe that's something that I could have as a goal, is to maybe like all these students. I'm so inspired by them that travel from so far to come take a class from me. I would like to take a class from somebody.
Yeah, oh, that's a good goal to have. Okay. And do you have any kind of personal reward system for getting things done?
I don't really. I'm just like such a get it done girl. Getting things done is really not a problem for me. I enjoy the process so much that it is the reward.
Yeah, and I'm sort of getting the idea that that is really a farm learned thing because my best friend is a farm girl. She grew up on a farm and she has this skill of taking in the information until she has just enough to make a decision, then she decides and gets it done. And I love that about her. So I'm kind of getting the notion that that might be, a farm learned thing. I don't know. What do you think about
Maybe,
that?
yeah, maybe that's true. Yeah.
What is a skill you'd still love to learn?
Ooh, I inherited my granny's loom, my Swedish granny. That was another thing that she did. She was a weaver. And I want to learn how to use it someday. I wish I could have learned from her, but I have her loom here, and someday I'm going to learn how to use it.
Yeah, and you have some beautiful supplies. I can imagine what you'll create. That would be great. Okay, have you had any crazy or funny fan moments where people recognized you?
I have actually. I started off as a blogger in 2009, and I took a trip one time, and the blog was successful. I only did it for a few years, but I was noticed by a few people, and then I was so like a little freaked out by it that I I stopped blogging after that, and yeah, that was. And it hasn't really happened now. I feel like my following is a lot bigger, and it hasn't really happened. But
Yeah.
now I'm a lot more comfortable with it too. Like when I was really shy back then.
Do you have any favorite collections of any kind in your home?
I have a really big collection of seeds, and I'm a shameless collector of books. Those are probably my two.
Yeah, that is really cool. So, do you collect seeds from around the world, or where do you get them? Or do you collect them from your actual farm, like when things go to seed?
Yeah, kind of all of those things. My husband and I just took a trip to Italy and Sicily. We were in Sicily and fell in love with they have this such a high like standards there of quality and like variety of vegetables. Like they're so focused on heirloom varieties and like how
Yeah.
amazing and delicious they are, and that's so important to their culture, and I was really inspired by that. So I wasn't able to bring seeds home because you can't through customs, but I was able to find a company. It was like Italian seeds or something
Yeah.
like that. I was able to order them. So yeah, now I'm starting to add some of those Italian heirlooms, and like the tomatoes, they were just like off the chart good there.
Yeah.
Where like here in this country, it's the focus is more on quantity over quality. So we choose, as farmers, we choose varieties that are going to produce the most over just like the best, most amazing tasting tomatoes. So
Yeah.
I was inspired by that and bought a bunch of seeds from that place, and I can't wait to grow them next year.
Yeah, that's a cool collection to have. I remember, like, probably a decade ago, the first time I went to my local farmer's market and saw heirloom carrots, which were, yellow and orange and purple. And I was like, what is this magic? And I never want to have regular carrots again. They're so delicious. And white beets, like when you find something like that, it's such a nice surprise. And it's just nice to have something different.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what is your proudest accomplishment?
Probably just this life that we somehow made happen that was totally unplanned. Like, I still can't believe we were able to do it, that we get to wake up and farm. We get to wake up and be farmers in America, which is a really hard thing to be. So we were really young when we started. I was only 20 years old when I met my husband, Tom. And yeah, looking back now, I'm almost 50, and I feel proud of it. I feel proud that we were able to do this and that we're able to continue with it.
Oh, such a great thing to be proud of. Okay. And do you have any furry friends in your studio?
I do. I have 2 dogs, Pepita and Frito. And they are with me everywhere I go, whether it's on the farm or in the studio. They're laying right there right now. Yeah.
Oh,
now that my
sweet.
kids are big, they're like my kids that are with me all the time.
They're like stuck to your leg and hang around with you all the time. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for braving the lightning round, Robin. That was super fun. So I've mentioned the website a couple times at farmandfolk.com, where we can find all the things we've talked about today. But where's the best place for everyone to connect with you on social media?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. Like I said, I'm trying not to be on there as much, but it is such an easy, convenient place to post things. So I'm there. And then my newsletter, which you can sign up for on my website. If you visit my website, there should be a little form that pops up and you can sign up for it. I send out a newsletter once a month, and I don't send out very many emails except, during the harvest season in the end, when I'm about to launch everything. My natural dye it's kind of like a one-time launch that happens in the fall at the end of the season.
Yeah. Yes, you want to get it while it's available. So it's a good thing to be on that newsletter. Okay, great. Now, as we wrap up, Sara, what do you want people to take away most from our conversation today?
Just follow your heart and don't be afraid to try whatever it is that you have on your mind. Just go for it. I had someone ask me I went to this film thing, and it was a young kid that stood up and asked a question. He said something like, I just don't know where to begin or something. I was like, just begin, just jump in, just go for it. I don't know. Just go.
Oh, it's such a good message. It's like you're telling the world, try. And then if you find something you love, go there and do more of that, right?
Yeah, one thing leads to another.
Yeah.
You make your way, you find your way.
Oh, that is truly your story. Well, Sara, it has been such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you so much.
So that was my show with Sara Buscaglia. And one thing that delighted me about Sara's world from farm to shop was the natural, soft, homegrown aesthetic. It's not even just an aesthetic. It's actually the way she lives her day-to-day as a maker. Another thing she does that just blows me away is her photography. She has some serious photography skills. What a great eye for layout and product and display, and like everything on the website is just gorgeous. And the book, of course. I can see why she has over 100,000 followers on Instagram. It is just a feed full of gorgeous natural beauty. And one thing to go check out for sure is her book. When it came out in late 2023, she gifted a few copies to her followers the day she announced it on Instagram. It was so sweet. So you can go get a copy of your own at farmandfolk.com or anywhere that booksellers sell books. You can probably find it, or even at thriftbooks.com. And today I loved sharing the story of Sara Buscaglia of Farm and Folk with you. Quilter on Fire is now on YouTube, and it's packed with brand new weekly content. What's waiting for you? Fun and easy tutorials to follow, exciting unboxings, exclusive interviews with top quilters and artists at the biggest quilt shows like Houston and QuiltCon. If you love Quilter on Fire on the podcast, you're going to be blown away by our YouTube channel. Don't miss out. Subscribe to Quilter on Fire on YouTube today. Let's ignite your passion for quilting. Thank you for listening to the Quilter on Fire podcast. Remember to rate, review, and follow us on Apple Podcasts. Your support helps me reach more quilters just like you. striving for that perfect quilty lifestyle. Click on those 5 stars and share what you loved most about today's episode. Don't forget to hit the follow button if you haven't already. With new episodes dropping weekly, you won't want to miss out on the inspiring stories and tips we have in store. Until next time, dream big and have fun in the studio with the Quilter on Fire.